Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Victory Road World Cup broadcast. I am Dylan MLBD Kleinvin. I'm going to be joined by Zach Immersion. How you doing, Zach? How you feeling after those first couple of matches?
I'm feeling pretty good. Those games were pretty exciting. We got 2-3 game sets, really down to the wire. Really interesting teams. We got to see cool stuff. And if those are any indication, we're up for some really interesting games moving forward. We've got 3 more matches to show you here today. And this one is going to be pretty exciting because these two teams are kind of on the brink. They need to win this one or they are going to be saying goodbye to the World Cup of Pokemon for this year. So yeah, all the stakes for these two as we go into this next match.
Yeah, Tyson was bringing it up earlier to start the show day, but it does feel like as we get further and further into the Victory Road season here for the World Cup, the stakes are getting higher and higher, right? We are getting teams where the matches we're showing on broadcast are pretty much do or die. These teams, they got to pull out wins starting now. Otherwise, it's going to be a little too late to advance to the next stage of the bracket. So I am very excited to see what we have in store for us today. I do think that some of the teams that we're going to be seeing today, a little sneak peek, they're going to be exciting to see new stuff that we haven't seen at least today on the broadcast so far. So I'm just excited to get into all of it with you. And I think that in just a moment, we're going to be ready to take a look at how these different groups are doing. So we can see group 1 here with Peru, Malaysia, Switzerland, and Austria. What kind of stands out to you from this group so far?
Yeah, so we are looking at the two teams that are kind of on the lower end, right? Someone has to be doing worse and some teams have to be doing better. That's kind of how this works. But Switzerland and Austria are really on the brink. They're in the lower 2 performing teams in this particular group. And so this is do or die. They've got to make it happen. And this is going to be one of the deciding games to help see who can get that leg up against the other team. Peru and Malaysia are doing a little bit better. We saw, I think, a game from those two earlier in the day, and so this group's rounding out pretty nicely. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Switzerland and Austria can duke out and see which one can get the better of each other in this particular week. And we've seen a whole variety of teams as we can now see on the
take
screen.
a look at that. There's Typhlosion, Azumarill, Rabombi down at the bottom. These are some pretty awesome teams that we've seen.
Gothitelle. There's a Gothitelle. You buried.
Yeah.
Gothitelle. Is that Parrish? I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
Could be Belly Drum.
This is so awesome to see because so far it's 2-2 in this group, right? Which means that the matchup that we're going to have is going to gain their team, their country, a lot of momentum in this matchup and might be the deciding factor between whether or not you're going to get that advancement into the next stage or whether or not your time in the Victory Road World Cup is going to end pretty soon. So huge stakes, as we've been saying repeatedly, for both of these teams. And I'm just excited to see how it's going.
Yeah, it's all to play for Damo and Christian. So very curious to see what teams they've decided to bring, right? The team choice for each week is always an important thing to think about because it's not quite like a regional where you want to pick a team that works against that can play against 9 rounds of Swiss or whatever. You just need to win one match, one best of 3. And so if you think, well, I don't think my opponent's going to bring like Tyranitar or something, so like you can bring a really Tyranitar weak team, for example, and maybe get away with that. But if you're wrong, oops, that's not great. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. You get to see what strategies players tend to prioritize and how they do that. So I'm really curious to see where these two players have landed on this for this match.
It does seem like there's a slight correction. So we had it shown that it was 2-2 for Team Austria and Team Switzerland. It should actually be 3-1 in favor of Austria. So that means that if you are a Team Switzerland fan, this match on stream is going to go a long way in making sure that you can even up that match score. And on the flip side, for Austria, if they can manage to get that 4th win, well, then they've secured at worst a tie for themselves, given that there's 8 overall matches. And just like you said, there's so much riding on this. And I love the fact that this is a team tournament. You see much more unique teams. And speaking of teams, let's get into the team sheets for this first matchup that we have today against Austria and Switzerland.
Yep, we have Christian here running a 6 combination of Pokemon that we have seen a bit if you've been watching tournaments in the second go-around of Regulation H. The double fake out of Rillaboom and Incineroar very nicely supporting 2 setup threats in that Sneasler and Golden Go, and alongside the very nice speed control and damage potential of Ursaluna and the Alolan Ninetales. This team is everywhere. I don't know how much more there is to say about it. It's got tools for everything. It's that Terra Electric leftovers Yawn Ursaluna that can just be so hard to get rid of. And I'm really curious to see how Christian is able to perform with this team. A great competitor, top 32 at EUIC, no small feat, 2 times world competitor. Certainly a player to be afraid of, and we'll see how Damo can deal with this very standard team. But most people should have some answers, some game plans into this team. It is so common, but it's still so good.
Yeah, that's potentially the downside of running one of these very standard teams, is that your opponents played against this a million times before, whether it's in tournaments, whether it's on Showdown, whether it's against their friends. They've seen this team before, and that is one of the downsides. But on the flip side, it's just so strong and so consistent that there's a reason it's done so well before. In in-person tournaments and Victory Road, we've seen this team on stream before. And a player like Christian, as you pointed out, he's had in-person success, and that goes a long way in making sure that you can pilot a team like this. Golden Go to set up, Sneasler to set up, tons of pivoting back and forth, Yawn to disrupt, and potentially buy you a turn to set up as well. Encore with Ninetales, which I think is just such a fun tech move on it. Dropping the screens in favor of Encore, you can catch so many Pokemon out, whether they've clicked Fake Out or Swords Dance or whatever the case is. You're able to really just be a nuisance with that Ninetales. So that's Christian's team there. I'm super excited to see what he does with this. And on the flip side, we've got Damo Lokmic representing Team Switzerland. What are you seeing with this team, Zach, that stands out to you? Well, for this team, we've got Pelipper, so we've got a bit of a weather war here. Rain from Pelipper, obviously. We've got snow from Ninetales, so I'm very interested to see how that dynamic ends up working out. We've got Basculegion here. It is Swift Swim. It's not a Scarf variant. It's not a Choice Band variant or anything like that. But Basculegion here is able to do so much damage. Combine that with the Terra Water, combine that with the Life Orb, and all of a sudden you've got something that can pressure Ursaluna, especially within the rain. Do we got Zach back?
Yes. Sorry, this match was just so exciting. Yeah, this match was so exciting. My internet decided it couldn't quite handle it. Yeah, we've got a pretty interesting rain team here. Double Dragon with that Archaladon and Dragonite, and that safety goggles on Christian's Incineroar are going to be pretty useful because there is a Spore user in that Amoonguss on Damo's side. So very curious to see how these two teams match up. Rain has feels like it's fallen a little bit by the wayside as we've gone into the second go around of Regulation H, but definitely when you disrespect Rain the most, that is when it can certainly show up and show just how powerful it is. This Rain trio with Pelipper, Archaladon, and Basculegion are just so potent.
Yes, they absolutely are. And I think we are about ready to get into our first match here for Team Switzerland versus Team Austria. We've got Incineroar and Amoonguss for Damo's side. And over on Christian's side, we have Ursaluna, Blood Moon paired with that Incineroar. Pretty defensive leads for both sides. Not a ton of explosive pressure here. What are you thinking in terms of these leads?
Yeah, definitely not. I think Damo recognizing, like, most of the time when people use this sort of balanced team that Christian has, they want to use Incineroar and Ursaluna to put pressure on that Archaladon early with things like Fake Out, Earth Power, and Yawn, sort of bait out a Terra, get a Yawn off, and that can really slow down Archaladon enough to give the Ursaluna and Incineroar room to maneuver. And so Damo not playing into that game, decides, let me just lead with Incineroar Amoonguss and slow play this back against the Ursaluna. And so Amoonguss doesn't have to worry about, something. It can put things to sleep immediately. It doesn't have to yawn something, wait a little bit, and then get the sleep. It can just do it immediately. And so Christian, recognizing that threat, will go for the fake out. And both teams not wanting to get put to sleep yet. So just trading fake outs, the sort of gentleman's Incineroar agreement.
Yep, trading fake outs. But now we're in an interesting position, and you pointed this out earlier. Unless you have Golden Go or Rillaboom in the back, there's not a great Spore switch in here. Amoonguss can kind of freely launch off Spores into a lot of these slots. And we also have this dynamic where both teams have Weather. We don't know if they've brought it in the back, but just the fact of, parting shot out into your Weather, they parting shot out into their Weather, it gets overridden. Both players are maybe a little bit nervous to actually make that pivot into their, main core strategy. So I am really interested to see how this turn ends up panning out.
Yep, and to start off, Ursaluna will be protecting, not wanting to fall victim to a Spore, and just a safe knockoff into that Amoonguss, removing that Citrus Berry, making its time on the field a little bit harder to capitalize on, as the Ursaluna's Protect will also stop this parting shot, so no pivoting for Damo here, as the Spore also going into that slot, so perfect Protect for that Ursaluna, and Christian gets a little bit of an advantage, just some nice chip damage on the Amoonguss. The one thing that makes Amoonguss a little bit hard to capitalize on here is that it is very much threatened by the likes of a double up from a Blood Moon and a Flare Blitz, so Spore is not as easy to go for. But Switch in the Rain, Kintera, there are ways that both players sort of feeling each other out in this tenuous matchup.
Yes, I agree. Amoonguss does have Protect, but even if you were to Protect, it's hard to see what Incineroar can do that's going to gain you a ton of momentum in this spot. So relatively safe double up here for Christian into that Amoonguss slot. And now we're just waiting to see what the Incineroar does on Damo's side. I think if you can parting shot out into something that maybe gives you a better board state, that would be really interesting. Basculegion could come in here potentially. Let's see. What does he bring in?
Yep, there's the parting shot. So both these players really showing a lot of respect for the sleep setter on the other side, right? Amoonguss doubled into after it protected. Ursaluna doubled into after it protected. And Damo has a plentiful options to punish these two water-weak Pokemon. Pelipper is going to be the choice this time. Also keeps that Amoonguss a little bit safer from the Flare Blitz from that Incineroar here. So Rain is on the field, but Snow could be lurking in the back.
Yes, and we did see a little bit of a teaser for what's to come. There is Ninetales in the back, so it is going to be a Weather War type of match. But this is one of those Pelippers that's running Muddy Water instead of something like a Weather Ball or a single target water move. And when you're staring down an opposing Incineroar and Ursaluna Blood Moon without Assault Vest, this water move could do a ton of damage, right? This Muddy Water, assuming that it connects, which is always a little bit of a question, is actually, poised to do a lot of damage on this turn. So I'm looking forward to see, Protect, safe there. Let's see, does Pelipper go for Muddy Water and does it connect? Just a Tailwind.
Just a Tailwind this turn, sort of Damo expecting a defensive play from Christian, trying to capitalize on that a little bit. Amoonguss still going for Spore just to cover that a little bit, maybe expecting Amoonguss and Tailwind to outspeed the Ursaluna potentially as well. And Incineroar also trying to get out of dodge, goes for that parting shot to weaken the damage output from this Pelipper in a following turn. And now Christian gets a nice option to see, all right, I've seen Tailwind, I've seen Spore, either of these can switch in for absolutely for free. And it will be the Ninetales to immediately rob Pelipper of its weather advantage. And so now Blizzard is looking pretty threatening as well into these two Pokemon. Pelipper doesn't love taking it, and Amoonguss is definitely weak to ice.
Yes, absolutely. And as you pointed out, we don't necessarily know the speed interaction between Amoonguss and Ursaluna Blood Moon. Unless you're quite invested in speed, the Amoonguss would actually outspeed under this Tailwind, which means that you could get a Spore off. It might require a Terra to do so, due to the Blizzard doing super effective damage. So this turn, I think we've finally found ourselves in a position where these players feel, or at least Christian feels, like he can actually go on the offensive here.
Yeah, and Damo thinking, all right, I can't really do that, just decides to switch out. Archaludon actually going to be the option to bring in here and shows the fourth and final. I was kind of expecting an Incineroar to come in here to soak up a Blizzard a little bit better, but instead it will be that Archaludon. And Ursaluna finally going to decide to rip the Terra on this turn, not wanting to risk a potential big Muddy Water, even in the snow, still would do pretty sizable
Ooh,
damage.
the miss.
Muddy Water does come out, but it does miss the Ninetales, so that Focus Sash is crucially still intact in this following turn. Ninetales following up with its own spread move, just an Icy Wind, not a Blizzard level of power, but crucially breaks the Focus Sash on Pelipper and gives a Charladon a nice little stamina boost, but against these special attackers, not as important. And Blood Moon kind of bouncing off this Charladon Assault Vest and that Steel typing really showing their value here. And Ursaluna gets to heal a little bit more up and get closer and closer to that full health where it's just so hard to take down.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I thought might have been a pretty explosive turn there, where Christian's finally able to bust through this defensive core that Damo's been constantly pivoting in and out of, ultimately ends up being a little bit of a nothing burger. I mean, you've got the Icy Wind to set up a little bit of speed control. Now things could be a little interesting. You know, how fast is the Ninetales compared to something like an Archaladon at just +1 speed effectively? The Muddy Water miss is pretty big because this is Focus Sash Ninetales. It's hard to get rid of already, and the fact that you're not able to break that Focus Sash does mean that you would need to double into it again. And we've seen, you know, Ninetales does have Protect, so it could bait some attacks in. Let's see what Damo ends up going for.
Yep, a Flash Cannon here would do nothing at all, and that is exactly what we see. Damo reaching for that KO with a potential, I think, probably a Flash Cannon and Muddy Water. Muddy Water, kind of the best move to click here. You don't really need to risk a Hurricane in this spot. So Muddy Water does connect onto the Ursaluna, but we see without the rain, with that Terra Electric, just peanuts for damage, and the Yawn gets to go off onto our Chaladon. That's what I was saying earlier. This is really the game plan that this team really likes against rain, is you get Terra Electric on the Ursaluna, make it really hard to find the damage into it, and then you just start, oh, you're feeling a little sleepy. And our Chaladon's definitely feeling a little sleepy today.
Yeah, and it's just a bit of an awkward spot for Damo because you have these defense boosts, which you obviously appreciate, maybe not in front of two special attackers, but in the later parts of the game. And now you feel pressured to switch out, but there's not a great switch in. And so Christian could launch another Yawn into that slot, could launch Earth Power because you know it's Incineroar and Amoonguss, neither of which want to take an attack in the back. And so I do feel like Christian's in the driver's seat. As you pointed out, this Ursaluna is so hard to get rid of. And the Rillaboom switch in here does mean that Ninetales is going to be safe for later in the game.
Right, realizing how important keeping that weather advantage is going to be, Christian will keep that Ninetales around. Still didn't even lose its Focus Sash for all the work it's done on the field so far. Rillaboom, kind of the most expendable at this point, can come in. Even if you know Damo calls this and hurricanes the Ninetales, you're kind of okay with that. But that means Amoonguss is can come in here a little bit more for free, as there's no Blizzard this turn. Another Muddy Water will connect. Big critical hit on Rillaboom. Does get an accuracy drop. That's something Christian does have to be a little bit mindful of, but probably not the most impactful. And Amoonguss, has to take a heap of damage from this Blood Moon, and because of that knockoff from earlier, will not get to feast on that Citrus Berry to heal up a little bit more. So Amoonguss, diffused a little bit of that pressure pretty nicely, but that resource is running low. Might want to try to switch it out, get more of that Regenerator healing to sort of combat this game. This is gonna go pretty long, I think.
Yes, it absolutely will. I mean, we're already down to 3 minutes of your time on Christian's POV, and probably even less for Damo. And it's just so hard to see a path forward where Damo is able to take out the Ursaluna Blood Moon. You've got nothing that can hit it for super effective damage as far as I can see. Neutral at best. And even then, with the leftovers, with the Rillaboom terrain set up, there's just not really any damage that's coming into this slot. We see Pelipper switching out into Incineroar. You get that Intimidate off. But again, where is the damage coming from? Maybe a Protect on Amoonguss, but I just don't see a way that you're breaking through this core. Oh, the high horsepower miss.
High horsepower will miss the Amoonguss as well, at least. So Amoonguss takes up this Earth Power. That high horsepower probably would have done it here. So big high horsepower miss here, and that is a Spore on Ursaluna, and that's not damage. That's definitely not damage, but it gives Damo room to get the damage that he might need later on. And so now Incineroar can start at least knock off the leftovers off this Ursaluna, make sure it's not healing twice as much, thanks to the grassy terrain. Start chipping away at this, and slowly, incrementally get this advantage. And Amoonguss definitely needs to leave the field. It's going to get KO'd if it doesn't. It can't put anything else to sleep. Wants that healing. That slot's definitely leaving this turn, right?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Amoonguss switching out, you get that regenerator boost. You're going to be back up to about half health. And like you said, I think knockoff into Ursaluna is a pretty solid play here. Wow. Oh, he hangs on. That's big. But honestly, what is Amoonguss clicking here? Maybe a Spore to cover a switch out? You can't really
I,
click all too much here. I
big,
wonder what
big
Amoonguss
pollen
is going
nope,
for.
just
Uh,
yeah, just a Spore trying to catch the Rillaboom switching out.
yeah.
Yeah, Damo really expecting Rillaboom to switch out there, thinking, oh, there's no way he just lets me Flare Blitz the Rillaboom. But Christian realizes, yeah, Rillaboom's not that important overall in this matchup, so let it just do what it can. Nearly gets that KO on Amoonguss. Amoonguss trained so well, that Grassy Terrain recovery, keeping it around with, looks like 1 HP. Yeah, now I feel like Amoonguss really wants to skip here. There's no, it's got, there's more it can do if it can switch out. And Archaludon can be a pretty nice switch in here. Won't take too much damage, and one of the few things that can do pretty reasonable damage to this Ursaluna, since it does not have an Assault Vest. You can start chipping away that way, but oh yeah, still very tenuous.
Yes, it's just so hard. Both players looking for that one knockout to at least limit some of the pivoting potential. And a Woodhammer going into the Pelipper slot, it might not get the knockout, but it's certainly going to put it down towards Grassy Glide range. And a lot of this hinges on whether or not Ursaluna is going to wake up. Terra goes from Incineroar, trying to get around something like a potential high horsepower or an earth power from this Ursaluna Blood Moon. Is it going to be knockoff? Can we finally get rid of those? Oh, he's so low on the Pelipper, but not quite getting the knockout there.
Yep, Woodhammer not quite enough. Ursaluna does not wake up on this turn, had a chance to do so. The knockoff will finally go. Yeah, Leftovers is gone. Healing is minimized. Grassy Terrain is coming closer and closer to a close. But yeah, both players still have all 4 Pokemon. Damo's got a lot of health lost on that Pelipper. Amoonguss is a little bit healthier than we last saw it, should it show up when it shows up again. Incineroar has full health, but it's not putting in the work it needs to. That the rain is kind of counterproductive here, where you really want to be getting those big Flare Blitzes off, but Pelipper's making that a lot harder to come by. And yeah, there's still a couple turns of Grassy Terrain on this turn, so Pelipper is vulnerable to a Grassy Glide on this turn as well. So still a tenuous position. Ursaluna's still pretty safe here, right?
Yes, for sure it is. Ninetales switch in, get rid of that rain. I totally understand where he's coming from. And like you said, Pelipper is now a little afraid of that Grassy Glide. So we might see a Pelipper protect here. We could see a Pelipper switch out, depending on the different, what the players see here. And Pelipper is going to switch out. That does mean that you do now have control of the rain, where you can switch it in. You can get control of that weather. Parting Shot here would be interesting, but we'll see. Ursaluna going for the Blood Moon. Is it going to do half? Does a little over half to Incineroar. What is Incin? Parting Shot. Are you going to go right back out into your Pelipper? You could take back control of the weather. I don't think Amoonguss is going to do a lot for you if you switch it in. So I do think it does need to be that Pelipper.
Yeah, could be Pelipper coming back in. And this could finally be a turn where Damo can click Electro Shot and kind of start snowballing at least a little bit to get the damage that he's been searching for this entire game. Grassy Terrain going to heal up the Ursaluna and the Archaludon before finally fading away. So Rillaboom, should it come back to the field again, we'll be able to reset that up. And Pelipper got the rain, that's great. But also, it is just an icy wind away from seeing the end of this game here. That Parting Shot is big on Ursaluna, though. That means that it's much less threatening with its special attacks. And it can't just sit here forever. It's been sort of neutered enough, but Pelipper, yeah, definitely needs to get out of here. Brought the rain, but doesn't need to do anything else. Incineroar is going to be happy to come in here and soak some damage. An Icy Wind, Incineroar can take that pretty comfortably.
Yes, Incineroar certainly can, and I'm curious to see the speed interaction. You would imagine that Ursaluna is now going to be faster at -1, but because of that Parting Shot, I do not expect Earth Power to get the knockout. Stamina boosts, we've seen them stack up, but there hasn't really been a physical attacker that Archaludon can actually punish. It's so low, but it does hang on. Dragon Pulse.
Dragon Pulse, good damage into Ursaluna. We're getting there. Damo's just slowly getting the damage onto this Ursaluna, but it might be too slow at this point. Archaludon dangerously low in the red. Incineroar in the yellow. Pelipper in the red. Amoonguss has less than half health as well in the yellow, so I think at this point, if Christian can just get into a spot to click Icy Wind or Blizzard a whole bunch, the game might just be over.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't really see a way that Damo can get the pieces back together where he can clutch this back, double protect here. You know you have the speed advantage in the subsequent turn. There is a world, I guess, where Icy Wind can miss, but it does feel pretty safe to just launch out an Icy Wind and something like a Blood Moon or an Earth Power. You know that you're going to get that knockout. And even then, yeah, Fake Out was clicked last turn. You can
Yep.
now
Oh.
Encore Incineroar. You know that our Chaladon cannot protect. Nothing can switch into a Blood Moon. I think Christian has finally found himself in a position where he's gotten his board state where he needs it to be. He can break through these very low Pokemon, and I do think it's just a matter of time till Christian's able to piece together a Game 1 win.
Yeah, Damo is going to try. He's going to do what he can, but it might just be smooth sailing for Christian at this. Moongus will come in here, take the second Blood Moon of the game. Incineroar also going to respect that Encore pressure that Ninetales we saw. Spoilers, but it is going to click Encore. So Pelipper comes back in, not to reset the rain, but just to keep that Incineroar safe. However, Damo can't stop this Ursaluna from grabbing a KO if it wants. Blood Moon will KO anything. Oh, okay, never mind. Never mind. Spoke too soon. Parting shot. Definitely did enough work on that Amoonguss, so it's still around. Damo's got basically no health on anything, but Christian Oz also has less than 1 minute of your time left. But Icy Wind does double connect here, and that's a double knockout with Icy Wind. Scratch that off your bingo card. Didn't see that coming. That means Ursaluna has nothing to do this turn, and oh boy.
Yeah, and next turn you just double protect in front of the Fake Out. You know that you outspeed. You could even play a game where eventually you switch the Ninetales out, you switch it back in so that you know you have those 100% accurate Blizzards. There's just so many ways that Christian can play out this endgame. I don't think Damo has much of a path forward here. I want to look a little bit towards game 2. I think I understand where Damo was going with this strategy. You want the rain to override the snow. You want Incineroar because it can pivot in and out so effectively. You want the Amoonguss for the same reason. I think you need to bring Dragonite or Basculegion or both. Otherwise, you just don't really have a way to break through the Ursaluna. You don't have enough damage. The Amoonguss was kind of pointless there. It wasn't doing a whole lot. It was pressured by the Ninetales. It was pressured by the Blood Moon. What are you looking for in game 2?
Yeah, I agree. I think Amoonguss, it sounds good on paper, where you're like, oh, I can just put a bunch of things to sleep, right? There was Incineroar and the Rillaboom on the side of Christian. So we had two spore immune Pokemon. But Amoonguss got the sleep on Ursaluna. We're like, great, you got the sleep. Now what? And it was like, there wasn't really something to dramatically capitalize on that. I think that's exactly to your point. I think we need a little bit more damage if we're going to see Amoonguss again, where it got the turns, but the turns weren't very useful for Damo. He wanted something like Basculegion to get a big rain boosted wave crash and just take a nice 75% out of that Ursaluna's health bar.
Yep.
But that damage just didn't show up, and so Amoonguss put it to sleep, but there wasn't any super meaningful follow-up. Our Chaladon felt really hard to position. It got a Dragon Pulse off, and that was it. So I think those are some options. I think Incineroar feels very crucial as just the sort of pivot piece that can deal pretty respectable damage. Knocking off those leftovers is nice, but yeah, just needs a little bit something more to twist the needle a little bit and get a little bit more value out of that, and just got to get rid of that Ursaluna. It was on the field the entire game.
Yeah, it actually never left. It never left the field, despite the intimidates, despite the parting shots. It never left the field. Speaking of game 2 adjustments, we are ready to get ourselves into game 2. Let's see what Damo and Team Switzerland can do to pull themselves back. And as a reminder, just more macro sense, they need this win in this matchup to really keep their hopes alive. So Damo needs an adjustment here, and we see it right off the bat. Just the straight up rain lead of Pelipper and Basculegion.
Yeah, Damo agreeing with us, saying, all right, I realize I didn't quite have the damage before. Here's the damage. Let me do the damage. Correctly does lead 2 water-type attacking Pokemon into Christian's water-weak Pokemon. And so on this turn, Damo certainly has options to do a whole lot of damage, and Christian only has so many defensive resources to use here. A Rillaboom switch is the only water resist on the team. Ursaluna probably wants to go for that same Terra Electric it went for in game 1 to also shed that water weakness, but that can only get you so far against something as a Pokemon as strong as Basculegion. This is the Life Orb set, so it also has the ability to switch moves and protect. And so it's not as easy to play around as a Choice Band one where, well, I know it's going to keep clicking the same move and it can't protect. Damo has a little bit more flexibility here. And Christian realizing, yeah, Incineroar, this is not the time for it. And Ninetales can also come in, remove that Rain and the Water type damage boost to these two Water types.
Ooh, Terastallization. I believe this is Damo's side. It is.
Ooh,
Pelipper turning into a Steel type. Very interesting there. Want to cover for something like a Blood Moon into the Pelipper slot. Keep that around so you can control the weather later. But as you pointed out, I mean, it's all eyes on Basculegion here. Which slot is it targeting? How much damage is it able to do? I think if Damo is able to remove the Alolan Ninetales on this turn, that is the momentum piece that he has been looking for this entire set to really get his game plan in motion. It's Wave Crash into that slot. Is it Muddy Water follow-up, and does it do enough?
Yep, Basculegion's Wave Crash, Life Orb takes some recoil, but Ninetales goes below half. Muddy Water from the Pelipper. Is it enough?
Oh!
Not quite. Ninetales just barely hangs on. The follow-up Blood Moon, though, into Basculegion is enough for the knockout. So that recoil damage put Basculegion in range, and that was Basculegion's one shot, and it got a Wave Crash in the snow into Ninetales. Now, that's not insignificant damage. Now Ninetales is extremely vulnerable to any attack moving forward, so that means Damo has a significant advantage in potentially winning this Weather War for good. However, without Basculegion, winning the Weather War is not as meaningful this time around, where there's the only thing to capitalize on it is that Pelipper, which is a meaningful threat. Muddy Water in the rain is still very potent damage, but yeah, losing a big piece like that does not feel great for Damo, but still not out of it yet, as Incineroar coming out of the field needs to keep that Ninetales safe.
Yeah, Christian pretty happy with that turn one overall. Has a pretty safe play here of protect the Ursaluna, pivoted Incineroar. You're going to have the fake out advantage. You can do a lot from that position there. Amoonguss coming in to soak up something like an Earth Power. And it's just so tough to see away. Oh, the side parting shot. Oh, I love that from Damo.
Yeah, Amoonguss does not care about losing its special attack, I'll tell you that much. And so calls the defensive play from Christian perfectly, gets Pelipper back onto the field to immediately get the rain back up. And so there's still fake out pressure from this new, freshly swapped in Incineroar, and Ursaluna is still healing a little bit more as it took that Muddy Water from just the turn before. But now it's kind of pick your poison. Do you want to stop Pelipper from clicking Muddy Water, or do you want to stop Amoonguss from clicking Spore? It's going to be hard for Christian to stop both of those, but does still have that Rillaboom lurking in the back that can stop a potential Spore. Damo also realizes, yeah, Pelipper is so important here. I cannot, this is not a safe opportunity to attack with it. Switches it back out, and Incineroar coming back onto the field, yet another Intimidate, yet more fake out pressure.
Yep, 100% agree with you that you basically have to pick your poison. Are you going to take a Muddy Water? Are you going to take a Spore? But I do think Christian's found himself the one play that is able to kind of bypass both. He's got the fake out into the Pelipper slot to cover that moving. He's now pivoted into the Rillaboom. Both slots are safe from Spore here, and Amoonguss has once again found itself in a position where it's sitting on the field and it doesn't have a whole lot to do. And now we're just in one of those board states, Zach, where it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be pivoting. It's a lot of bulky Pokemon, and we're going to have to see, you know, is someone able to get that little positioning advantage to get that advantage over their opponent?
Right. This is that's sort of like stalemate-ish board state. However, worth noting, Christian has a Pokemon advantage, right? If he can just, take even trade, he'll probably just win. And so it's going to be up to Damo to really capitalize on these turns and get a little bit more out of them than Christian's expecting. But the fake out to stop Incineroar from moving and a knockoff into Amoonguss, not a great start. Amoonguss loses that Citrus Berry. Incineroar doesn't get to do anything. And what can Amoonguss do except fish for switches and go for those spores? A knockoff plus Spore does work into Incineroar. Will remove those safety goggles, but that fake out on that turn does stop that from happening.
Yeah, very good point there. Knockoff Spore would actually allow Amoonguss to get a Spore off, finally, for the second time in the 10-plus turns it's been on the field this set. And the rain is set up, which means that something like a Flare Blitz from Incineroar is not going to be able to do enough damage. So I am interested to see the switch out into Ninetales. That is another slot that could be spored here. Damo could potentially find a way through. We'll see if he finds that knockoff Spore play. Protect from Amoonguss.
Yeah, just to protect, not wanting, potentially fearing a Flare Blitz from this Incineroar, which, to
Great
his credit,
protect.
that's exactly what Christian decided to go for, saying, hey, I can turn off the rain and then get this big Flare Blitz. Oh, he definitely called it, gets the Flare Blitz onto the Ninetales. Perfect. Yeah, perfectly calling exactly what Christian was going to do there. Those are the kind of plays that he needs to make to get back into this game, because it is now 3-3, and Damo has won the Weather War.
Yes, Pelipper actually poses quite a bit of a threat here, because if you can get a little bit of chip damage onto the opposing Incineroar, Pelipper's Muddy Water is going to be able to knock that out. You're now a Steel type, which does have both positive and negative implications for you in this endgame, so it's going to be funny to see how that ends up panning out. But if you're able to get in Pelipper safely, we know that it's likely to be the fastest Pokemon left in this game. Maybe Rillaboom might be faster, but you're going to outspeed Incineroar, you're going to outspeed that Ursaluna, and Muddy Water just looks like solid damage across the board. But the million-dollar question is, how are you going to get that Pelipper in? Maybe a parting shot from your Incineroar? I don't know. It's going to be tricky.
Yeah, and Amoonguss did just protect here, so it is quite vulnerable to a lot of damage here. The Blood Moon brings it below half, and Flare Blitz will finish the job. There was no Citrus Berry since it got knocked off earlier, so it was 3-3 for just a moment there, but now we're back to a Pokemon advantage for Christian. However, this does let Damo get a free switch, 2 free switches actually, thanks to this parting shot. So Ursaluna having its special attack crucially lowered here, and Blood Moon is off limits for this next turn. So Damo didn't quite get a lot done on this turn, but has set himself up for a lot of work to get done on this next turn. As Pelipper comes in, 5 turns of rain, needs to make something happen.
Yes, Pelipper absolutely needs to start putting in some work here, getting some damage down on the board, maybe some accuracy drops, different things like that. You do have Fake Out pressure with your Incineroar, but Rillaboom is a pretty safe switch in. You're going to have to call it with something like a Hurricane knockoff to be able to actually get that knockout onto that slot. This Ursaluna, it's just sitting there again. It's got the leftovers. It has not been knocked off this game. It now does threaten Pelipper with Earth Power. It doesn't even need to worry about clicking Blood Moon into it, which is definitely an advantage for the Ursaluna here. It's got Protect. It could bait some hits into that slot. Incineroar is vulnerable, though. Let's see.
Yep, Ursaluna will be protecting on this turn as Pelipper does decide, Muddy Water not trying to call an Ursaluna, or a Rillaboom switch in rather, with a Hurricane. Goes for Muddy Water, massive
That's a lot of damage.
Incineroar, but does take the hit, so gets to go for a parting shot. Crucially, Christian's Incineroar is faster than Damo's. I think this is the first time we've gotten a chance to actually see that crucial speed interaction that all these Incineroar players love to see. Who's actually faster, who's not. As Rillaboom does hit the field, still full health, and we'll take this knockoff.
Ooh, big crit!
Ooh, yeah, massive critical hit. Rillaboom down into the yellow here, and this is getting closer.
It is. I am starting to see potentially a path forward. I mean, it's hard though, right? Because you now have Fake Out pressure from Rillaboom. Fake Out Earth Power into both slots is deadly. It would knock out Pelipper, so it makes you want to click Protect on Pelipper, but if you protect Pelipper and Fake Out Earth Power just goes into the Incineroar, well then it's a wasted turn and you could have attacked with Pelipper, so a lot of pressure here on Damo. Let's see what play he ends up going for, and is he able to call it out?
Yep. Well, one Fake Out Pokemon switched in last turn, another one coming in this turn. Incineroar is Intimidate, kind of nice into Damo's Incineroar, but Pelipper will be going for Protect on here on this turn to stop itself from getting faked out. Their Fake Out now waits in the wings, as Rillaboom did go for Fake Out into that slot, so great call for Damo, gets that Protect right. Another knockoff, though, into the Rillaboom without the item and without that critical hit, and that Intimidate not quite enough there. And so still on a knife's edge, a lot of damage has been done to the 2 pivoting Pokemon on Christian's side. Rillaboom and Incineroar dangerously low. I think a Muddy Water might just clear the board here. And Ursaluna is still waiting in the wings. Another Fake Out pressure, another Fake Out turn is on the board, and yeah, Fake Out into that Pelipper. Focus Sash is now gone.
Focus Sash gone, high horsepower into the Incineroar. That's an unintimidated Rillaboom, so doing over half there. Flare Blitz, even in the rain, I would expect this to get the knockout. It does, and now we're into an endgame where Pelipper, it has one more turn of rain to work with. It will be able, assuming it connects Muddy Water, to pick up the Incineroar, do some decent damage to Ursaluna, but we gotta remember that its attacking power has been reduced through a parting shot earlier in the game, right? So -1 special attack, Christian confirming that for us. It's so tough. It's so tough because I feel like Earth Power picks up a knockout onto both slots for the Ursaluna. Christian's got a lot of freedom with how he wants to play this with the Ursaluna. Does he protect here? Try to get a little bit of an advantage there? Does he end up just going for the Earth Power? It looks like he's opting for the Protect, which is going to put him into a 2v1 endgame.
Yep,
Ooh,
Pelipper
Protect from
actually-
Pelipper.
Yeah, not quite what I was expecting. Pelipper protecting on its final turn of rain. Ursaluna also will be protecting on this turn. And we'll see what these cats decide to do. Parting shot into the Pelipper to no avail, thanks to that Protector. We're going to see the same thing from Damo. Nope, just a knockoff into that Ursaluna Protect. So both players recognize what the important Pokemon on the field are. It's definitely the special attackers. It's that Pelipper and that Ursaluna. However, with the rain gone, things are a lot... The wind has been taken out of Damo's sails a little bit. This damage from Muddy Water going to be noticeably less, and it's going to be hard to see where the damage comes from to get rid of this Ursaluna. Accuracy drops could be nice, but Mind's Eye doesn't really care about those.
Yeah.
Incineroar will go down to Muddy Water, but it's just this raid boss Ursaluna, and I think it might be enough to see the Earth Power into Incineroar, gets that 1 KO, one more Earth Power, and Christian will take this game.
Yeah, that Seal typing on the Pelipper, I get where Damo was coming from. It happened on turn 1 of this match. You didn't want to take something like a Blood Moon into that slot and lose your Pelipper, but it is coming back to bite you, because had Pelipper just retained its normal typing, I think it would have won this game almost every time. I mean, there's some yawn shenanigans that can happen, but assuming you can just protect on the turns where he clicks Blood Moon, and then when he can't click Blood Moon, you're able to attack into it, it would have been a very interesting endgame here. But we are seeing Ursaluna just able to click that Earth Power, and this should secure the set for Christian and for Team Austria.
We get to see the Muddy Water damage at least, but yeah, even if the accuracy drop had come
That'll
through,
do it.
Ursaluna, Mind's Eye does not matter. Pelipper goes down. A very valiant effort from Damo. Really, really well played, but this Ursaluna just proved was just too hard to deal with. So bulky. With that Terra Electric, it was just so hard to find the damage. He had that one turn. He had the first turn with that Basculegion to get the damage, and Damo just said, yeah, Christian just said, oh, I'll just switch in Ninetales. That'll take the damage, and as long as I keep Ursaluna around, that is the key thing that'll let me win this game, and that's exactly what we saw. Ursaluna is so strong in this rain matchup. Really interesting to see. People have finally figured out like how to beat like the first go around of Reggae. Really have great answers into rain for the most part, but this second go around, people have certainly found it, and it's actually Ursaluna, weirdly enough, for a lot of teams.
I know, and it's so weird, right? It's not rocking Assault Vest, which you might think it would have, like Terra Water or anything like that. Just straight up Terra Electric with the leftovers, with the grassy terrain. I think out of the 20-ish turns that were played in this set, it was probably on the field for about 15 of them, maybe a little bit more. It just sat there. It was clicking Yawn. It was clicking Earth Power. It was clicking Blood Moon. It was doing so much damage across the board. So difficult to get rid of. But that is now a 4th set win for Team Austria, who is looking to put themselves in a pretty good spot. And Team Switzerland is going to have to find a tie in that, in this week's matches against them to keep their hopes alive in the Victory Road tournament.
Yeah, excellent. Really slow, methodical game. Very well played from both of our players. I think Damo played very valiantly. Again, that was not an easy matchup. Did what he could. Almost got there. So close in that last game. I loved the call out of like if Pelipper wasn't a steel type, then you could potentially stall out all the Blood Moons and win the game. Like,
yeah.
Not the best odds, because Yawn can totally throw a wrench into that, but there was the chance, there was the possibility.
Yeah,
great way to start our first game together. We got 2 more, and if they're any bit as exciting as this one, we're in for a treat, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. Like you said, we've got 2 more sets coming your way, so don't go anywhere, but we're going to toss it to a short break while we get ready for our next set.